Welcome back, friends. Welcome back. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com, and you are tuned into Propaganda Watch. And this week we're going to examine an article that was submitted by a Corbett Report listener by the name of Adam that may have slipped under people's radar because it seems rather innocuous, or at least the headline and introduction seems about what you would expect from a mainstream media outlet, and thus people might not actually get to some of the more revealing quotes later on in the article. I'm referring specifically to an article that was published at Reuters, specifically news.trusted.org. News.trusted.org, even that URL is rather indicative of something, isn't it? But anyway, our good friends at Rothschild's Reuters saw fit to publish Hoarding in the USA, Coronavirus Sparks Consumer Concerns back on February 28th. And that report started by noting American consumers awoke this week to the coronavirus threat and are beginning to display a symptom of the illness seen in Asia and Europe: hoarding. Yes, not coronavirus, hoarding. Nothing in the United States yet resembles what Italy witnessed in recent days, where supermarket shelves were stripped bare and videos posted on social media showed consumers coming to blows over bags of pasta. But there is unquestionably a growing sense of urgency for people to stock up on staples and to prepare for lengthy home quarantines. And it goes on to talk about some of the naughty people who are trying to prepare for what's coming, or what they believe to be coming, because they tend to listen to mainstream media outlets. Oh, silly people. But interestingly, then, it flips this narrative again on its head by noting that several major retailers, including Walmart and Target, stand to see supply chains badly hit by the coronavirus, and that could result in some empty store shelves starting in April. Ed Kelly, an analyst at Wells Fargo Securities, wrote in a research note this month. We believe the time to start worrying about the supply chain risk of 2019 NCOV is here, wrote Kelly. It's worth noting that big box players like Target and Walmart could be the first to experience out-of-stock issues. That's because these stores operate on a just-in-time inventory model, Kelly wrote, and are highly dependent on China, where supply chains have been badly disrupted. So if you go through and read through this article, you will get the general sense that, these silly people are listening to the hype and panic that are being pumped out through the mainstream media, but maybe listening too hard and doing a little bit of this pesky thinking on their own and thinking about some of the consequences, economic consequences of this, and are going out and stocking up and taking precautions for themselves and their family. Naughty children, don't do what we don't tell you to do. But then, of course, you have the analyst at Wells Fargo Securities saying the exact same thing. Well, that's presented as a voice of reason because this is an official voice, right? And in fact, it goes on in this article to make that explicitly clear that that is the point that ultimately of this article. It goes on to say stockpiling in states like Hawaii and Minnesota was spurred by messages from state health departments urging residents to buy supplies of non-perishable foods, prescription medications, and sanitary supplies. The advice contradicted the message from the U.S. Centers for Disease Creation and Propaganda. CDC Director Robert Redfield on Thursday told a U.S. congressional hearing that there was no need for healthy Americans to stock up on any supplies. And here's the money quote. This is crazy. "We should have one unified message," said Robin Gershon, a clinical professor of epidemiology at New York University. "When there's an absence of a good, strong, and reassuring official voice, people will get more upset and start doing this magical thinking." And then it goes on with the article talking about more ways that people are trying to prepare themselves for what they believe to be coming. And so the ultimate point of this article, when you really go through it, it isn't even about the hoarding per se. It's really about what Robin Gershon is quoted as saying there. If people were simply blindly following their state health departments, like the people in Hawaii and Minnesota who were taking their state health department's recommendations to stock up on non-perishable foods, prescription medications, and sanitary supplies, well, then that's okay, because they were told to do so by official government sources. But, you see, they were overridden farther up the ladder by the U.S. Center for Disease Creation and Propaganda, so people should be listening to the CDC, and thus, well, these silly children, commoner plebs who can't think for themselves, they can't deal with two official voices saying different things, coming to their own conclusions. What, do you think we're dealing with fully grown individual adults here who can think and act for themselves? No. We're dealing with little children. We need one reassuring official voice to tell people what's what and what they should be doing. That's really the underlying point of this article, is that just listen to what the experts say And it's also, I think, directed at that expert class, the self-appointed elitists, the technocrats who wish to be ruling over us. It's kind of a message to them as well. Hey guys, we need to be all on the same page, and there needs to be one voice, one thing that people are being told, because you know that people can't think for themselves. People taking action into their own hands. Ugh, that's disgusting. We can't countenance that. So we need one reassuring official voice, one place where people can go to get their information. Do you see how always, every time, it comes back to centralization of power, centralization of control, reducing everything down to one answer, one solution, one official voice, one way of doing things. It always comes down to that for the technocrats who want to rule over an entire society of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of individual free-thinking human beings. No, we can't have that. We need one system, and we need to tell people with one voice what they should be doing. That's why all of your information about knowledge and history and all of that should come from one authoritative voice, like, say, whatever, Wikipedia. Sure, why not? One voice, one answer. Alexa, what happened on 9/11? Well, Wikipedia says blah, blah, blah. That's why you should have one search engine that will ideally, as is the explicit aim of Google, as said by former CEO Eric Schmidt, the ultimate, if you get more than one search result, that's a bug, not a feature. You should get one answer for your search, and it should be the quote-unquote correct answer. It should come down to one government, one voice, one source of information, one thing that you're doing, because otherwise, people start making decisions for themselves. Now, of course, this is all framed around the issue of hoarding in times like this, in times of crisis. And that's the ostensible point of all of this. But really, I want people to reflect on what this centralization of power and control, and that it always comes down to this. I think once you really examine that Robin Gershon quote, you get the sense of what the ultimate endgame really is, bringing it back down to one. Centralization. Anyway, that's an interesting thought. Thank you, Adam, for sending that article in and pointing that quote out. It certainly does say something about the mentality of the people who wish to rule over us. That's going to do it for this week. Looking forward to talking to you again in the near future.